political pinball here in New Hampshire, with candidates bouncing between at least 30 events across the state today, trying to hit the all-important target of undecided voters.
Carly Fiorina starting the day at Blake's Creamery in Manchester, New Hampshire. She wasn't on the debate stage Saturday night, but she is here very much in the thick of it, trying to get votes from the citizens of New Hampshire.
Despite months of campaigning, there's still a lot of convincing to be done on this nose-to-the-grindstone day in the Granite State.
There's probably about 4 people I'm considering. Carly is one of them.
Who are the other 3?
Kasich and Bernie Sanders, oddly enough.
This could be Carly Fiorina's last chance to change voters' minds.
So you're obviously the underdog here. What's your pitch to voters?
The same pitch I've had all along. See, I'm not a politician, so the pitch doesn't change. We have to take our country back. The system's rigged. The game is stacked. The odds are stacked against the American people. We have to restore citizen government. We have to take our country back.
Across town, Hillary Clinton brought the full force of the family name to Manchester Community College.
Wow, thank you all.
The former First Lady of Arkansas had dozens of supporters from that state in the crowd.
She's been solid before solid was cool. She's there. She's going to step right in the first day and do this job that we need to be done.
It's called snow.
Well, now I can have some white hair.
Across town, we caught up with Marco Rubio as the Florida senator braved the snow to get his message out.
Well, first of all, I'm as conservative as anyone in this race, but I'm the conservative that can unite the conservative movement. I can bring our party together. I can grow it. I can take our message to people that haven't voted for us before, and we're going to win this election. Hillary Clinton doesn't want to run against me.
Your rivals are saying that the debate performance shows that you wouldn't be ready for Clinton. What's your response to them?
Well, look, I mean, not just that debate, but every debate before it, I've shown consistently the ability to answer important and difficult questions, I think, in a very compelling way. We raised more money after this debate than any other debate we've ever had, and so we're excited about it.
Excitement is in no short supply for one candidate leading the polls here.
At the Palace Theater here in downtown Manchester, the crowd is getting prepared and getting excited for a Bernie Sanders Get Out the Vote event.
It was a mixed crowd of both older voters and the younger vocal ones who may help him win this state on Tuesday.
He actually has a game plan on how he wants to get stuff done, whereas with Hillary, I don't trust Hillary as a candidate with the recent thing with the emails, and also I feel like she's been too involved in the corruption of politics. We are younger, we're in our 20s. We're paying attention, and we're going to vote based on what we see and what's going on.
And welcome inside Valpo Town Hall. You just saw a CNN story from Jake Tapper, kind of giving you an overview of what's happened today in New Hampshire leading up to the primary today. I'm Aimee Heyden, your host, joined alongside by Heather, Mende, and Hunter Balczo. And we're going to be talking a lot more about New Hampshire, the results from tonight, as well as what we can expect week ahead heading into South Carolina and Nevada. Guys, we're going to get started with winners. Both Democrat and Republican projected winners tonight. First, on the Democratic side, Bernie Sanders getting a very large, sizable win over Hillary Clinton. And then on the Republican side, it was pretty much expected Donald Trump would be the winner on the Republican side in New Hampshire. So starting out, guys, what are your thoughts on results for tonight?
I'm not at all surprised. First of all, on the Democratic side, Bernie is from Vermont, so people in New Hampshire, they have a lot of experience with him. They hear him in the news media. They hear him in different aspects. They have a lot of experience with him. And for Donald, he just loves to generate that enthusiasm. So primaries are more like the Donald Trump market because it's easier to get his people to the polls. They vote and they walk out than a caucus, which is why I'm not really surprised he didn't win in Iowa.
Absolutely. There were a lot more independent voters, as I had said last week, that were in New Hampshire, that are in New Hampshire, so that definitely fed into that whole Donald Trump winning and why we see Kasich so close in second, because he runs his platform as a moderate as well. So it's, yeah, I think we kind of expected it. The surprises, I think, are on the Republican side with who were second and third, at least for now. We don't have all the votes yet, but for now we know the percentages. Exactly, and that's one of the big things tonight. You have Kasich, Bush, Cruz, Rubio, all running within a couple percent points of each other. So really it's more a fight for that second and third spot on the Republican side. And for someone like Bush, you focus more on, if he doesn't do well today, does he continue? Yeah, I mean, I think that for a lot of these guys, the money is a big factor. If they don't have enough funds for their campaign, they're not going to be able to go on. You just feasibly can't. So I think that was a pretty big discussion before I came on air that I was watching on CNN, the discussion there. But I think for Jeb, it's not necessarily that big of an issue, and people are rooting for him, and they want him, especially in those more southern states. But we saw his brother actually won, if I'm correct, New Hampshire. When he was running for president.
Actually, that was John McCain. George W. Bush, he won Iowa. He lost New Hampshire to McCain, but then he came back and won South Carolina.
Okay, so regardless, you kind of saw a little bit of that coming, but when it comes down to Christie, who's way far down, we don't know.
Yeah, a lot of candidates, they don't really like the Iowa caucus. They don't see it as like a possible win for them due to like how the caucus structure is. So they put all their eggs in New Hampshire, which was Christie's strategy. Yeah. John Kasich really bet on it. And Kasich, he seems to be benefiting from his strategy, while Christie, he's kind of fallen by the wayside. So it'll be interesting to see if he hangs around after New Hampshire, because New Hampshire's the second round when you start on the next big drop-off, so you'll probably see 2 or 3 candidates dropping out after New Hampshire, simply because the money runs out. I could see Christie dropping out, but I think Jeb will continue on because he has the money and the infrastructure to keep this show going.
Yeah, exactly. In Politico right now, having Christie polling about 8%, and when you look at the people who are really polling in the single digits, you have Christie at 8%, you have Fiorina around 4%, and Carson at 2%. Those are the 3 you kind of look to be the next ones to kind of fall by the wayside. We saw last week Huckabee leaving on caucus night, Santorum quickly following behind him a couple days later, and also O'Malley.
And then Rand Paul dropped out a couple days.
That. It's interesting, too, to see who all of their supporters went to, because, Rand Paul had a great base going, especially within millennials.
Yeah, he had the libertarian vote. He tried to capture what his father, Ron Paul, who actually came second in the New Hampshire primary in 2012, he tried to tap that base, but that base wasn't really too satisfied with him.
Right, so the question is, did his supporters go to Kasich, who's now polling pretty high, or did they go to Marco Rubio, who clearly is not having as great of a night as he did in Iowa? But I don't know. I know that a lot of my friends that are libertarians and did follow Rand Paul were going for more Ted Cruz, which is also another factor that you wonder why he isn't as high as he was before.
And Ted Cruz and Marco Rubio kind of polling around the same. They're 11 and 10% respectively. So those two had kind of even said that they're going after each other, trying to gather those votes. So for those two, do you think that tonight was a big night for them as well, for Rubio and Cruz?
I think that in the debate, which aired on Saturday night, Rubio was kind of ripped apart by Christie, and I think that was a big part of his move to, change his own platform a little bit and go after that, I don't like senators. I'm a governor, and I stand tall with John Kasich, and I don't know. That was just repeated over and over, and that definitely, I think, hurt Rubio, because now people are like, we hear your 25-second speech about America being great, and we're over it, which is what maybe charmed people in the first place. So, you wonder if there's a little bit more substance there, and you kind of hope that there is, because he is a more level-headed candidate, whereas, you have Trump and obviously Cruz is a little bit of a questionable candidate.
I'll partially agree on that. Ted Cruz probably looked at New Hampshire and he didn't really see the parts of his base, not very large Tea Party population, not very evangelical. So his base isn't really there. So he's looking ahead to South Carolina, which is his big base.
Right.
Marco Rubio probably feels a little more disappointed since this has the voter base that would vote from the suburban conservatives. A lot of them commute in and out of Massachusetts, kind of more that liberal / moderate conservative area, very well educated. So I think I wouldn't say he's the big loser, but I think this was his chance to shine, and he kind of dimmed out a bit.
And last thing, before we move on to the Democratic side, Trump seeing a lot better numbers tonight.
He showed up to the debate. There you go.
And besides that, too, he also had a much better ground game as far as campaigning. Obviously, in Iowa, we didn't see much of the ground game. In New Hampshire, a lot more open to that ground game, going door to door, being more present. Just in New Hampshire in general, do you think that has also helped him?
There were arguments back and forth that he was now running a more normal campaign than, much like the other candidates that we see, rather than these huge rallies in giant stadiums. But even then, he still is a little bit different. He's not doing everything the same. He's not going door to door as much as the other candidates are, but he definitely had to. I think he kind of saw, okay, this is actually how you do it, and I need to play the game a little bit. So
yeah, Donald Trump's a populist, and they do not play by typical political rules. Their idea is get the big crowd and try to get people to the polls. In the Iowa caucus, you need to have a dedicated voter base who has to show up and sit there for 2 hours. Primaries are a lot easier for populists like Trump. They just got to get their supporters to the polls. They cast their ballot. They walk out. They're done. So I think I'm not surprised by Trump's victory. It'll be interesting to see how he capitalizes on it going into South Carolina, where I think he'll do pretty well.
All right, and before we head to commercial, we'll talk real quick. It's a lot smaller of a pool on the Democratic side. Sanders, we all said it, figured he would take a big victory in New Hampshire, and he did. What does this say for the campaign moving on? Now they've each traded one. They both have one win under their belt. What does that say for both their campaigns?
I think it completely ended the inevitable nominee of Hillary Clinton she had walked into, and most people didn't think, oh, no one's going to challenge Hillary. It'll be a walk. We'll be done by February. Now we actually have a contest. Now we're actually going to possibly see the election go all the way to June like it did in 2008. So it'll be really interesting to see how this develops. And with the New Hampshire results, it'll be interesting to see if he can translate into other states, such as Nevada, South Carolina, and see if he can make it a national campaign instead of just like a 1 or 2 state thing.
All right, and when we come back after the break, we're going to talk a little bit more about the turnout that we've seen for both Iowa and New Hampshire. Obviously, big polling numbers, breaking records in how many people have shown up to the polls. So we're going to come right back after the break talking about that. Stay with us. And welcome back inside Valpo Town Hall. We're going to get to talking about the voter turnout for the election season so far, but we do have some breaking news coming out of NBC News and ABC News, both projecting John Kasich to finish second in the GOP primary race behind Donald Trump, and he was polling about 15-16% of the vote. So big win for him because we didn't really talk about him much in Iowa. But now we're hearing his name a lot more in New Hampshire, which is a place we expected to hear his name.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I think that he had a huge breakout moment during the debate where he was on the end, you know, kind of quiet, and then he was asked a question about what he sees conservatism as, and that was just, I mean, as a conservative, that was great because you're hearing it and you're like, yeah, that resonates with me. I want to be that. And it was basically just like a love for the country, a love for your friends and family, and just like making that the best you can be and helping everybody in America, you know, thrive without taking other people's
Yeah, it's not surprising to see him in second place considering like he runs a lot on his personality. In New Hampshire, they pick their people based on personality. Like they picked John McCain. They believed he was full of integrity. They really liked him. John Kasich seems like, he doesn't seem like a normal politician. He seemed like the guy you would meet up, you'd have a beer with, you go to Duffy's Trivia Night and hang out with. The other candidates, they seem like fake, in their bubbles. John Kasich just seems like a legitimate guy you could hang out with, and the people in New Hampshire responded, we like Kasich.
I don't know.
Let's vote for him.
I don't know. I think he was kind of, I'm trying to think of the right word to use.
He's got that working class appeal. He just seems like an average dude. He always talks about his dad being a mailman.
Oh my gosh. He was awkward though. Like during all those debates, he was so awkward. He's stumbling over his words. He's not like, I don't know, resonating with candidates a lot, or with voters. A lot of people were really annoyed with him in the beginning of the race, and so he must have done wonders there in New Hampshire because I think widespread we're not going to see it as much.
I don't know, just when he talks, he seems like such a likable guy, and then you can relate to his experience.
Vote for him?
we're going to talk about that later, but so a couple things, not just his personality. He can relate that he was governor of Ohio and he got reelected.
He was a good governor.
And he also was a member of the House of Representatives when they balanced the budget. And he was also one of the only candidates to put out a budget that's actually balanced.
Yeah.
So he has that.
Heard this,
he has Ohio he could point to, and he can point to his personality. So voters are responding. They're like, we like this guy.
Yeah, he has concrete, I think, like you said, examples that he has done stuff. But that's the thing. People bash Rubio for repeating over and over again that he, loves America. But it's like, John Kasich, we've heard that your dad's a mailman, and we've heard that your mother was a maid, and we've heard that you balanced budgets. Like, it is a drinking game, widespread.
It still goes back to the idea, who would you rather have a beer with? And Kasich is the one going to the pub. Well, Rubio.
Christie probably is, but.
I'd love to have a cheeseburger with him.
All right. So one of the other things that we've really talked about is the voter turnout. And you guys are talking about the voters and how they've been receptive to the candidates so far on the ground in New Hampshire. Same thing in Iowa. But New Hampshire voters have really come out in very strong numbers all over the state. And that's something that has been talked about a lot. We saw the record numbers in Iowa. We saw the record numbers today in New Hampshire. What do you think is bringing them to the polls?
New Hampshireites, they have one of the highest levels of civic involvement. Their state motto is "Live Free or Die." They take politics very seriously. So every primary, they're actually they pride themselves on being the first in the nation. So this is a very important thing for them. They pride themselves on that, and they also pride themselves on. Iowa picks corn, but we pick presidents. That's one of their unofficial mottos. So this is a big deal for them.
And of course, Dixville Notch on their town sign, first in the nation. In Kasich actually won that one this morning. And they do pride themselves on it. We actually have a little clip from some New Hampshire voters that kind of talk about how they feel about voting, how they feel about being New Hampshire voters in general.
And who wins these elections, whoever we go for, it probably will swing the election. And then it's the very first primary in the nation, so it's really a good spot to be in.
We're gung-ho, we're a small state, but we're representative of a lot of people, and people like us today taking the day off just to see all the goings-on.
We're a small state, but we're really independent here, and we really like to look people in the eye and see exactly what they're made of.
So again, getting back to the voter turnout, Hunter, we kind of talked before the show about some reasons why voters are coming out so positively on both sides of the party line, on the Republican and Democratic side. So what do you look at as the top reason?
One thing I would look at is the enthusiasm. Like a lot of people are saying 2016 is a big election. And then going along with that, we have the president who's not up for re-election, the vice president who isn't running. So there is an open seat for the presidency. The Republicans see this as their chance to retake the White House, just like the Democrats saw in 2008. The Democrats are trying to keep the White House, like how the Republicans were in 2008. So there's a lot of enthusiasm going on. Like, this is our big election. This election will determine what are we going to be doing for the next 20 years.
Yeah, I think on both sides, people are saying we need to get in the White House, and people are seeing issues. And you have the people that still really love Obama and are buying into this whole Obama's third term platform that she has going. And then you also have people who are like, I'm sick of it, but they're also Democrats. So they're saying, well, Bernie Sanders is a likable guy. He's made a folk album, and he does his thing, I guess, and they like that. On the Republican side, obviously, nobody knows what to do because there are so many. I mean, genuinely, there are really a lot of great candidates out there, but we're kind of getting stripped of some of that beauty just because there are so many great people. I mean, if you look at Chris Christie's resume and all the things that he's done, he really has done a lot. And you look at Kasich, like we've talked about, and he balanced a lot of budgets. And we also have Rubio, who's so likable. Cruz, who maybe isn't, and then Trump, who's basically taken everything from everybody. So I think bottom line, people are intrigued and they want to be able to make that difference. And now it's finally, hey, like I'll go out and vote because it's the fun thing to do. And it's nice that it's finally mainstream.
And to go along with that, what else might be driving turnout is voter anger, because a lot of people, the economy is below 5%, but a lot of people haven't felt that. Wages have been stagnant for over 30 years, so people are angry about that. They're angry about dysfunctional Congress. They're just angry about so many things. And in America, when we're angry at our politicians, we do our democratic right and we go and vote. So I see that as driving one of our, driving up turnouts. People are just angry.
Right, and another really cool thing I think is that we're in that position where we are millennials right now, and we're finally seeing the excitement. You know, when we were 18, we could go and vote, but we didn't know, I don't think, as much as maybe we do now, and it wasn't as exciting then, at least for me, but now it's like, you know, I'm talking about it all the time, and we're discussing it on campus and in classes, and people are actually caring for once, and that's really cool to hear that conversation moving, and just to, you know, scroll through even my Twitter feed and see all of those different political activists and very active.
Sorry, Heather. And that's one of those exciting things too, is so many young people getting out to vote as well. That's been a huge number for both sides. Is you know, the millennials, the 20-year-olds, maybe their first or second time voting, who have really taken an interest in this election. Obviously, Hunter, like you said, a big election season. But after the break, we're going to come back and talk about what we can see next, heading into South Carolina, heading into Nevada, what we think will happen next, and who's still going to be around for the next primary. Stay with us right after the break on Valpo Town Hall.
Everyone knows John Guilford is one of the best defenders on the team. He's one of the best in the PFL, and he puts a lot of time in on the field to make sure of that, but he also puts in a lot of time off the field to do that too. Pretty good at what he does. Pretty good. Yeah. Ow.
It's easy to walk into an interview feeling confident, knowing you'll make the right impression. Which one do you use? The bone crusher, a little too firm. The misfire, just utter confusion. The politician, a little too creepy. The dead fish, very awkward. The hug shaker, too much commitment. Get started right away with Handshake, only through the Career Center. Do what you love.
All right, another update for you tonight out of New Hampshire. Hillary Clinton, taking second place to Bernie Sanders, just made her concession speech. And guys, here's some of the updates for you. She started off, she still loves New Hampshire, even though she didn't win.
Spoiler alert, she didn't win this one.
But she plans now to take the campaign to the entire country, making it countrywide. And some of the things she promised in her concession speech, she's going to work harder than anyone to make changes for healthcare, secret, unaccounted money out of, keeping the secret, unaccounted money out of politics. And
just to clarify what that is Bernie Sanders was accusing her campaign of having a lot of money from big banks and from Wall Street, correct? That was
yes. Well, the Sanders campaign is funded by donors. Their average donation is like $37.
Was it 27?
27 or 37 bucks.
I mean, she's been fighting that argument since Thursday when he had brought it up to her face, and she said, "You know what? You want to say something? Say it to my face." And he said, "All right, like you're funded by this." And then she's like, "No." And then basically, like her campaign fought against having to publish all of her speeches and publish all of her campaign information, which is already published. But anyway, that was what that was.
Yeah, and also she has a couple bold national missions that she also mentioned in her concession speech, which was manufacturing, clean energy, and infrastructure. So she's already looking ahead to South Carolina, to Nevada. So we'll head into that as well. We'll start on the Democratic side because it's only a two-person race. When we go into those next two races, guys, what do you see for Sanders and Clinton? Do we keep going back and forth, or does one kind of pull away from the other?
I'm actually not really sure where they'll go with that, because originally going in this race, it was supposed to be, oh, Hillary Clinton, inevitable nominee, no big deal. And then Sanders like, oh, we'll just ignore him. Turns out Sanders has campaigned successfully enough to have a virtual tie in Iowa and then beat her very badly in New Hampshire. So the Clinton campaign's in a little bit of a shell shock right now. They're trying to figure out how the heck are we losing this? This is kind of ours to lose, so they have to regroup a little bit. So I'm not really sure where they're going to be going. I would say focus first on Nevada, because that's a caucus state that should benefit Hillary Clinton's organization. But then again, there's a lot of Sanders supporters out there in Nevada. And then if all else fails, Hillary has to do well in South Carolina. That is her last stand.
I just think it's so funny that she came into this thinking, oh, it's a breeze, I'm fine. And here we see Bernie Sanders, who once again is a 74-year-old white male. Like, you can't get any more just ridiculous than the fact that they're so close. You know, she thought she had it, and she doesn't, which is just brilliant. But
and that was kind of shown in Iowa too. That we all kind of expected that we would see, you know, a big win from Hillary. She won barely by a couple percent. She didn't have the convincing win. You could argue that Bernie actually more so won the momentum from Iowa, carried that into New Hampshire. So it's more of a back and forth. It's not so much runaway unless Bernie Sanders takes these next two, right?
Yeah, it'll be interesting because you have the Bernie Sanders campaign, and their main message is, okay, people are outraged, so what do you say? He's getting people like, we're going to change things, we're going to do this thing, we're going to go back to basically what economic conditions were like in the 50s and 60s when America was most prosperous. Hillary Clinton, when you listen to her, a lot of voters feel like she's just the same.
Bernie, you don't help people prosper by taking other people's money. Like, you have to give people opportunity.
You know, the U.S. economy was at its most prosperous when the tax rate was at 70%.
We're never going to agree on this. We just won't. But I think we can agree that Hillary is very self-centered and uses the word I pretty much all the time. It's either me or my husband and I, for the most part, which is still another thing that's confusing. But I think one thing that's really interesting too is Bernie Sanders' campaign actually brought itself to Tinder, which is once again just shows this whole millennial involvement in campaigning and you know, in politics right now. But he was, and I don't know that he was necessarily or whose brilliant idea this was, but the campaign was brought to Tinder and girls would match with guys on Tinder, and from there they would say, hey, go vote for Bernie Sanders. And then, like, that was it. And people actually got kicked off for doing that. So that's just one fun fact.
Yeah, Sanders has figured out the internet. Anyone who goes on there can. So there is, like, many pages about Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders dank memes. There's all kinds of followers on Tumblr. Well, it seems like Hillary can barely turn on a computer. So
she can't because she doesn't know how to work.
It just seems like when you look at Hillary, she's the candidate from the 1990s, while Bernie seems like the 21st century guy.
She does. She still wears the same necklaces that they wore in the 90s.
All right, so let's get on to the Republican side. Moving ahead, first we'll talk about who's still going to be there next week.
Wow. I really don't know. I think that once we're done with the final polls coming in, then we'll have a better idea once we see the percentages and kind of hear those speeches, victory or not victory. I think Cruz will still be in. Obviously, Trump will still be in. Rubio's going to hold on to what he has. I think he just had a bad week, a bad news cycle for sure. Jeb's going to stay in for sure. Kasich is going to hope to God that he can continue whatever it is that he did moving forward. I think that I don't think he'll stay up there, though, necessarily. Christie, like I said, probably will be gone. Fiorina, she didn't even get to debate, for goodness sake, and there wasn't that many people on the stage, so she should probably likely drop out. I don't know who else.
Trump will stay in for a while. Ted Cruz, he's conjuring up the conservative coalition of the evangelicals and Tea Partiers, so he's going to hang on there for a while. Marco Rubio's going to hang there. Jeb has the infrastructure to hang around. It'll be interesting to see how long Kasich stands in, to see if he tries to take away from Jeb the establishment and try to coalesce that area of the Republican Party. Ben Carson will stay in there because he really doesn't know what he's doing.
But that's another one, though. It's like, you know, he had a huge opportunity there with the debate when Cruz stole the votes from him, supposedly, and, you know, he still didn't benefit from it. So you thought maybe, like, oh, yeah, Cruz is going to go down, but it really didn't work out that way.
I would probably see Chris Christie back, dropping out or suspending his campaign because he bet everything. He bet the farm on New Hampshire, and New Hampshire hasn't delivered on him, so he's going to probably drop out or suspend his campaign.
All the Jersey people will cry.
They will. They'll cry tears of joy. But I feel like Fiorina, she'll try to hang around at least till the end of the week, and I could see her dropping out before South Carolina.
And you wonder if some of these people are just going for VP or cabinet positions. That's another big part of it. So we'll see a lot of endorsements coming from that angle as well.
All right. So major developments happen over the next week. Before we get to our next show, which will be next Tuesday, 8 o'clock, once again, we'll be talking about what's happened in this week, the results from New Hampshire, moving on to South Carolina and Nevada. But thank you for joining us for tonight on Valpo Town Hall. For Hunter and Heather, I'm Aimee Heyden, and have a great night.